This is another mini episode of Teach Me to Dad with our two dads, Ben and Chris. We're going to hear from these two on another topic that we're going to do each week about what they did in their families, how this played out, how their faith shapes how they raise their families. And so great insights from these guys. Thanks to Fruit, the sponsor. Check out their app for helping you read the Bible and grow. Link in the description. Over to the Rad Dads. So a thing I constantly ponder, and so keen for both of your guys' thoughts on this, is particularly the dynamic of being a working dad, and you've got all that comes with the pressure of working, the time, the brain space, all of that, and then wanting to be present and a dad that's investing in your kids at home. How have you found that? I'm curious what's been the hardest and easiest seasons for that, and just if there's any things you found helpful to, particularly to be able to be a present, useful dad whilst you've got lots of other responsibilities going. What do you think?
I'll go. Yes, it requires a balance. And I would see home time as family time. And so if you could do whatever you can not to bring work home, do that. So if it means you spend 10 minutes longer at work, so you come home with that done, do it. That's what I've found. And the drive home from work is like a reset. You kind of got to realise, right, I'm going home, I'm going to be on. Whether you go through the door and your wife hands you a kid and says, now you're on, kind of thing, you almost should expect that. So, yes. So, work hard. Sadly, sometimes work gets the best of you and then your family gets what's left over, which is a shame, but that's kind of what happens. The sleep thing, if I think about it, was when it was difficult, when you're not getting sleep. And yeah, so the times when you've got lack of sleep, it's hard to perform well at work and at home. And another line I had was holidays. I'm a school teacher, so my holidays are different to most of the world. But my mantra, rightly or wrongly, on the drive home on my last day of school was that it's a holiday for my wife. It's not a holiday for me. It's a holiday for my wife. It's not a holiday for me. And yeah, do you know what I mean? That's not perfect. It's not the best way, the only way, but that's what I had to do. But holidays were kind of important for our family. But yeah, home time's family time. Try and be present when you're at home. Hide your phone somewhere.
And so that's part of that. Try to not bring work at home. Is that you're mentally compartmentalizing work's over here. When I'm here, I just have that. Yeah. We've started with our holiday. Our latest holiday. We decided to throw away the term holiday and talk about family excursions.
Yes.
Because a holiday just makes me think I'm going to have rest time.
Yes.
And then it just gets frustrating because it's not that restful.
Making memories.
Making memories. Yeah.
So holidays, they're not expensive, but they're regular. It's good to get away, but realising it might not feel like a holiday. When you get back.
Yeah, good. That's helpful. Thoughts?
Yeah, well, just what Chris said, right? And the that bit of what Chris mentioned about the reset time. There has been times where I've pulled my laptop out. I've been in the car. I haven't quite been home. Completed some work, and then put the laptop down, and then walk into home. Right, so there's been that intention of doing that as best I can, but noting that you have to. There's a battle here. You know, you're at 7:30 at night. You do the laptop. You do those last two emails, and you're going to be home at 7:45. What's worse, being 15 minutes later, or actually having a present, clear mind? The present, clear mind for me would win. But that was often a regular practical challenge, right?
Yeah.
So for me. Some of my thoughts on this is in any career decision, it's a shared decision with Cass, with my wife, and that came from before kids, and so it was about honouring our roles together in oneness of marriage, and so very conscious of that right from the get-go. And then and as I mentioned, not done perfectly, but this was the tension, right? We need to anchor back to this. But there were times, so in my career, I now work for Mission Australia, and I have a national role, and I travel a lot around the country. And prior to that, I worked for a for-profit employment services company, which also required me to leave early, 6 in the morning, and get home at late, 7:30. And so long hours and different things that were creating me to do that. And then when kids came on the scene, we remember making the intentional decision that I need to be present more. And there was an opportunity for me to take a national role just as Ollie was being born, and decided not to. And so I felt really good about, that means I'm not going to travel, right? But still I was doing the 6 to 7:30s. And so this was a real challenge for us in terms of making some decisions of being present and local. And so that tension was healthy, which caused us to make decisions to make sure that saying no to things is really healthy and helpful. But not just no to work things, but to other volunteer things. I was a pastor's kid, and so I was brought up in a church environment, and so you're involved in just about everything. And so I remember that was quite intentional when the church may have been asking me to volunteer in lots of different ways, being decisive and discerning to ensure that I now need to care for my wife and my kids in a more intentional way. And so those decisions actually... I was making those decisions sometimes really well and sometimes really poorly. But then then I got a new job with Mission Australia. So that's a Christian-based organisation. And so it almost felt like I'm now doing ministry. And so ministry is really important, isn't it, right? And so then that sort of energy of being successful and being driven by career and all those sorts of things was almost justified by the fact that it was a Christian organisation. So that's cool. I can do that. And so that was a real intention to say, hang on, no, God has entrusted me to look after 3 kids and to support my wife as a leader of the family. I'm a servant leader. That is... I had someone say to me, that's your first church, right? And so look after them. And so that has been, I think, a really helpful tension to make decisions. And so being present is really important for the kids. And also then in terms of when living my life, modelling what decisions I'm making in front of the kids, right? So why have I said no to this? The church may have been asking me to do this. Why have I said no to that? And why have I said yes to that?
So you try and do that out loud a little bit with the family, with the kids?
I'm getting better of that of late. That's been a late learning, and it's something I would have liked to have learnt early on, but I've learnt that probably later in my dadhood, if that's a word. But that's something that's sort of come a little bit later. But it's been really helpful. But something that really brought this home for me is because I have a national role, actually a role that would take me to Sydney quite a bit. So doing the commute from the Central Coast to Sydney would take you away, you're leaving in the dark, getting home in the dark and what have you. But knowing the importance of being present, I would tell myself it's quality time, not quantity time, and all of those sorts of things, right? Because I'm doing good work and that justification. And I learned that there is the importance, as Chris was saying, of being home, being present, but there is times where your wife needs a holiday, and there is times where you need to give in those sorts of ways. So I was wanting to be really intentional. But COVID happened. And when COVID happened, it forced us to be home. And it was in that time where I learnt so much about how important it is to have quantity of time as well as quality of time. And so because by God's grace, he forced me to have quantity of time and not be at work so much, and that has been an incredible blessing, and I've been able to hold on to that
How
And
did
so-
you notice that that was valuable in that time? Was there things that you noticed happening with the kids that you were like, wow, the quantity time is actually making a big difference?
It's the incidentals that happen. It's when you can see the change in the expression of your kid's face, and you see that happen regularly, and it's the unspoken things, right? And you can get a sense of, right, I need to step back here or lean in here, right? But things that when you're having quality time's great, but there's a part of quality time that's manufactured. All right, quantity of time is the things that just sort of happen by being there. It's the times where you're together and nothing's being said, you know, and that I think was a real learning. And then, but through that, we were able to create new types of routines like family walks and things like that. It was a special time, and so that was something that clearly I didn't intentionally have COVID happen to us. No one did, but I'm so grateful for that part. And so in that, really tried to hold on to it. And so when other career opportunities have come up, it's like, hang on, I've learned something here. And I want to make sure I can hold on to that, because be an empty nester before we know it, right? I can't believe I even said that. But there's only so much time where you're going to be the dad forever, or whilst we're on Earth anyway. But there's a special time whilst they're under your roof, and there's a doubling down of our responsibility, and so just very conscious of that.
So, give me your thoughts on this, right? Tell me if you reckon this is right or off. In my mind, I think of 0 to 10 years old as like prime time where quality quantity time is of most importance. And if I was ever going to do more work, I'd do it when they were teenagers, because they're starting to fill their life with their own things, whatnot. Do you reckon that's right, or do you reckon that's not right? How have you found that? Has there been particular seasons that you've thought, I need to be in the work-life balance, work-family balance, I need to tilt more to family in the younger years? Or is that not quite right?
So my view on this is not a perfect science. My view on this is that each family, each husband and wife, right? And I think that's a really important thing. I think the marriage is such an important part of parenting to be an effective dad. And so I think that there are ebbs and flows and shocks that come into different life situations that you just can't manufacture, right? And so in my view, I don't think there is any rule. There is the 0 to 2-year-old space. I understand, and don't quote me on this, but I believe that the brains of a child is open and is malleable. And so those first 2 years, I think, is incredibly important to be caring to the mum and also to be having a presence, right? I mean, it's hard to do the quality time in the 0 to 2 years, but the presence and quality time, I think, is there to create that harmonious, as much as possible, anxious-free environment. You know, I've heard that and I believe that to be true. But I also know that the brain is to open up like that again when you're in your late teens to early 20s. And life decisions can be made there. And so for a dad to be maybe less present in that very formative time could also be a challenge, right? I made a decision, I remember this not that long ago, that because the next time that I hear that your brain opens up like that is in your late 40s, early 50s, and I'm on that horizon, right? And I made a decision to go back and to study, knowing that I'm probably going to challenge myself about a whole lot of things and question things. And I've gone back to school and I'm doing some Bible study, I'm doing some theology study at SMBC, and I just happened to be doing that with my son Ollie. He decided he heard I was doing it, he wants to do it too, so we're doing it together.
That's
right,
cool.
Which is amazing. And we're both at that stage of our life where we may be, there could be big life decisions, and so that is creating quantity and quality time in an area where we are wanting to make sure that we can hold on to the truths in a real way and model that. But I just don't think that there, in my view, there is a rule. There is life circumstances. God is sovereign. He takes us on a path and a journey. And my sense is it's different for everybody. There is a time and a need where dads may need to go away and do some things because it's good and healthy for the family.
Yeah.
But I just think that there's no rule to that. There probably is, and if there is, I'd like to know it.
Similar thoughts? What do you think? Have you found
Similar thoughts. The 0 to 2 age I see is really important. Your child sleeps half the day, and so you have this tendency to value it less or have more free time. But I would push against that and say your child has completely worked out the world by the time they turn 2.
Yeah.
And so they've seen your habits and your patterns, and so that's really important, the 0 to 2, to give your child the most solid base. Try and be there 0 to 2. Like hopefully Ben and I keep saying that your kids are different to mine, and I only know my 3 the best. But yeah, so I'd say no fixed rule. Try and be there as much quality and quantity as you can. There is a golden age of 7 to 11 where kids possibly listen to you more, follow instructions, and are just more stoked on life. But another great thing Ben said was your marriage and doing this together with your wife. So the other thing I would like to push is that relationship you have with your wife. So my wife stopped working when I had our first child, and she didn't work for 15 or 16 years. And that you might not be in a situation where you can do that. But that was a choice that we wanted, my wife with the kids all the time. And our kids need us all the time. So I wouldn't want to put a time or an age on things. But just the fact that I always want us to be there for them. And so you might, as they get older, there might be less problems, but they're kind of bigger. There might be less things to buy, but it's more expensive. So, do your best to be with them, as much as you can. Yeah, because as Ben said, that's your people, your crowd, your first mission is to your family.